Just press the Let's Go Live button, which means we've got to wait for the stream to fire up all across the fruited plains of the internet before we go ahead and get started. And we might have a little bit of a detour today. Got notice that the juiciest of the juicies, the Smollett, is queued up for a verdict. And so we may have to talk a little bit about that rather than the Ghislaine Maxwell stuff. We'll see. Let's take a look, though, and make sure that the stream is alive and well all across the interwebs. And then we can go ahead and jump into it. I do believe that we're live on YouTube, and that means that we're ready to rock and roll because the others are right behind it. Hello, my friends, and welcome back to yet another episode of Watching the Watchers Live. My name is Robert Gruler. I am a criminal defense attorney here at the R&R Law Group. Today, we were supposed to talk about Ghislaine Maxwell trial day 9. And we might, but we have a little bit of an audible, a little bit of a game plan change because we just got news about 19 minutes ago, as you can see here on the screen. A verdict was reached in the Jussie Smollett trial. And so this is over from NBC Chicago, Channel 5. And so they updated this. They published it 34 minutes ago. And they're updating this for us here in real time. We're also taking a look. You can notice over on Twitter that the Jussie Smollett hashtag is trending. And so we're taking a look at that as well, following along here on Twitter. People are weighing in and having a conversation about their thoughts on this trial. So we will follow that along and probably take a quick look at some of his testimony. Now, let me give you an update on what happened with Ghislaine Maxwell today. We might have to push that over to tomorrow because we didn't really have much trial today, to be quite candid with you. They came into court, they called one witness, and then it was a sick day. They went and talked to the judge and said, somebody's not feeling well, Your Honor. We're going to have to break for the day. And so we got started with one FedEx witness, somebody named Tracy Chappell. And really all she came in and talked about was a series of invoices that were showing that somebody sent packages in the mail. This is sort of to be showing that these packages were being sent to the victims. They were being groomed by receiving the packages. Nice jewelry, nice, clothes and makeup and all this stuff. And so we got a little bit of that, but then they broke for the day. And so on the queue, I was waiting for a phone call today, kind of an important one. If they call, I might have to take it, but we'll see. So where the heck was I? So we're all askew today because we've got Jussie Smollett, Ghislaine Maxwell trial. Not a whole lot happened there. I was going to talk a lot about some of the other developments. For example, they have the government prosecutors are trying to preclude the defense from calling another lawyer as a witness. And so we can talk about all that maybe tomorrow because one of the prosecutors is sick today and they were not able to perform. I think it's a prosecutor. We'll talk about it. All right. And so this may be a little bit of a meandering, less formulaic live stream than you're used to, but that's okay. That's what's so cool about it being a live stream. And so let's check back in and see here what's going on Twitter because Jussie Smollett is now they are deliberating or there's actually a verdict that has been reached. And so people on Twitter are anxiously awaiting. You can see somebody here posted this GIF and a lot of people maybe have that feeling. I'm taking a look over on the chat. A lot of people are saying, yeah, it's pretty much should be guilty on that one. Verdict is in. You see people are posting all sorts of interesting stories. Now, if you've been a part of this channel, obviously we've been talking about Rittenhouse. We've been talking a lot about Ghislaine Maxwell, obviously, for the last several weeks, but not so much of Jussie Smollett. And so Jussie Smollett was one of these other trials where we couldn't really see anything about what was going on. If you remember, this is sort of what we got out of it, right? More court sketches. We were trying to appear inside the courtroom, but the judge decided to close everything off. You've got here in this courtroom sketch, you've got Jussie Smollett, he's on the left, being questioned by a defense attorney. This was back on December 6th, so this was on Monday. And you can see what's happening, right? It's not a whole lot of stuff that we can glean from it. This is another picture. This was on Monday. His mother's there with him. We've got Janet, Layton Criminal County Courthouse. This is day 5 of his trial. It's kind of been a wild trial from what I've been gathering. A lot of people saying that bizarre stuff going on. In other words, the defense attorney claiming that the judge lunged at her and all sorts of weird stuff. And so, this has been one of the weirdest cases ever because this guy is just continuing to, I think, stick to his story up until the very bitter end, even though it's pretty obvious that it didn't go exactly the way he said it did. Here's another picture. They're all masked up. Again, with his mother. They're day 5. This was back on Monday. We see another photograph of them walking again. So, this is the same type of photography that we see once they go in the courthouse is pretty much off limit. So there's Jussie. These are these are the 2 MAGA white guys, I guess, that you can see here. These couple Trumpers. Attorney Gloria Schmidt-Rodriguez. She's the center. She walks with her clients. We've got Bimbola Osindaro. He's on the left. And then we have Ola Binjo Osundario. He's on the right over there. As they arrive at the criminal courthouse, they're testifying. Smollett's accused of lying to the police when he reported he was the victim of a racist, anti-gay attack in downtown Chicago. The man trailing the trio is identified as the bodyguard. So this guy's the bodyguard. Sort of has that bodyguard look. He's panning the scene, waiting for a potential threat. Here's a couple other photographs. Who's this guy? Special Prosecutor Dan Webb. And you remember that this whole case was mixed around. I mean, there was a lot of problems here because Jussie was going to get charged, and then he was not going to get charged, and then finally he did get charged, and so this guy got appointed, Dan Webb. He's a special prosecutor. He's going to come in and prosecute the case. And so, we didn't really spend any time talking about the testimony, and so we have a little bit of a smattering of what happened here. And again, this is kind of actually running into the same issue that we were going to talk about today with Ghislaine Maxwell. Ghislaine Maxwell, one of the big questions that everybody is asking now is, well, the government's case in chief is basically coming to a close. Are we going to be hearing from her? And we're kind of going back through our Rolodex in our minds, and we're saying, oh, well, who else testified and how'd that turn out for him? So we've got Kyle Rittenhouse. He testified, worked out pretty well for him. He got up on the stand. He sort of went against the standard wisdom. A lot of people said there's no reason at all why he would be needing to testify, and he did anyways, and he was victorious. You take a look at what happened with Derek Chauvin, though, right? He didn't testify, and he got convicted. We can kind of go back through the list, and we can say that we saw the McMichaels testify in the Ahmaud Arbery trial. They testified, or at least Travis did, right? And he got convicted. And so we're sort of asking ourselves about Ghislaine. Where's she going to fit into this thing? Jussie is his real name. Jussie is somebody who testified in court. Let's see what the jury has to say about it. Vientikis over there is telling us that looks like he might actually be arriving at the courthouse, which is interesting. We can see what the latest is over on Twitter. Let's see. Verdict, it's about to be read. This is breaking. Where's this at? Uh-oh, let's listen in on this one.
And of course, reporters definitely were shouting questions to Smollett as he was flanked by family members and supporters. He didn't answer any questions, but you have to wonder what is going through his mind right now. The verdict will be read momentarily. And will he be convicted, or will he be acquitted, or we just don't know just yet, and we will wait. We don't want to speculate on that. We've been bringing in so much.
Oh, we'll speculate.
Analysis. Let's just watch these scenes as both the defense team, Smollett, his family members and friends enter into the courtroom there in Chicago.
Yeah, we'll speculate. Got no problem with that.
Jussie, how you feeling?
He's getting some questions. Jussie, how you feeling? So they're walking in. Now, my question, I don't know if we're going to get to hear the actual verdict, right? Like, it's been locked down this entire trial. So they're going to cut back out.
Stand in the hallway and shoot.
Yeah, so the news anchors are just talking.
Okay, so there we saw.
All right, so they're setting up for the next scene, it looks like, and we're not going to get too much out of them. We'll see if they...
All right, so that's Fox 32's Dane Placca. We just saw Jussie Smollett enter into the courtroom. Let's go now to Fox 32's coverage. We're going to hear from them very, very soon. Then we're going to bring back in Doug Burns to talk about all of this.
All right, so we'll keep that going there in the bottom right, and we'll just poke back in and see what's happening over here with the trial, with the verdict, so we can just sort of keep our eye on that. Here, we'll boost that up a little bit. And so when Smollett, when the Jussie was actually there in trial when he was testifying, he was facing charges, lied to Chicago police about January. They said that Smollett, who is gay and black, orchestrated the hoax to give them publicity, giving them $100 for supplies. Yeah, They also said that Smollett gave him a $3,500 check to carry it out. So yeah, we kind of have a refresher on what was happening here. Attorney Enye Uche asked if he planned a hoax. So they said, Mr. Smollett, did you plan this hoax? Smollett says, no, there was no hoax. He says, absolutely not. When asked, did you give Osundio and your brother $100 to pay for supplies? Smollett told jurors, no. He said, I just returned home from a trip. I was walking home after buying a sandwich. Took place around 2 a.m., January 29th in 2019. And this little segment here is why a lot of people are making fun of this guy. Because he's walking around New York at 2 a.m. and in January in Chicago. Last I checked, it's freezing out there. And so you see this footage down here in the bottom right. Fox in Chicago is covering this live. This is, B-roll footage from last night or from wherever. That looks like it's Smollett. We just saw that he is basically in the courthouse now and waiting for the verdict. Let's check over on Twitter and see if we have anything on the latest here for Jussie. And you probably remember the Dave Chappelle clip, the Jussie Smollett. I'd play that, but YouTube will probably ding that for a copyright problem. But Dave Chappelle was the original of the Jussie. Remember, the juiciest of the juice. So there's Jussie. We don't want to make fun of people in prison, of course, but let's see. Here's another photograph. He arrives in court. So this is just kind of the latest stuff that's on Twitter. But Fox News, they're actually there in the courtroom. And if anybody else has anything that is a good place to follow this, you just let me know, either in the locals chat or over on YouTube. So kind of a little bit of a different casual stream, just waiting around for the verdict. This guy over at Fox is reporting on it. Everybody's waiting. So when we go back over here, apparently when the testimony was unfolding, Jussie stood up in a Chicago courtroom and he demonstrated how he said the man walked up toward him. Said he walked up quickly. He pointed to his left temple to show where the man hit him, saying, it happened right here. Got me right here is where it happened. And Smollett said, well, I would like to think I landed a punch, but, I don't know if it landed. Smollett said he slipped and they tussled on the ground for up to 30 seconds. Smollett said he saw a second person who he believes kicked him on his side. As that person ran away. You can see Smollett down there working his way into the courthouse. We saw that footage. I believe he's actually in the courthouse now. So Smollett says he got decked in the left temple. Somebody kicked him. He fell on the ground. Likes to think he landed a punch. Smollett said he assumed the person who attacked him was white. Just assumed, didn't see it. Because he used a racial slur and shouted, MAGA country. This is MAGA country in downtown Chicago at 2 a.m. in January 29th. Outside a Subway sandwich. MAGA country is what happened. Okay. This was an apparent reference to the then president Donald Trump's campaign slogan, Make America Great Again. Remember, this was right during the middle of an election. The brothers Ambimola and Olabingo Osundaro, they're black. They testified last week that it was Smollett that instructed them to yell, "This is MAGA country," during the fake assault. Oh, it's just too good. So this guy actually, pays them. They show up to court and they actually testify to that. No, it was them. Yeah, no, Smollett paid me, and he told us specifically. He told us this is MAGA country. He is an actor, by the way. He's an actor. You know, he's got some screenplay experience. He knows how to sell a scene, doesn't he? So he says, what should we say during this fake hoax attack? Maybe we should say, you know, get out of here. Or, you know, something like Lindsey Graham would say. What would Lindsey Graham say? I don't know. Say something he would say. And Jussie says, I've got a better idea. Say, this is MAGA country. And they all lights up. That's brilliant, Jussie. You're so smart. We're so grateful that you're in Hollywood. Let's roll with that. Ready? Action. And they do it. And they got it. It sounds like they delivered it pretty well. But not good enough, though, unfortunately. Nobody picked that up. So Smollett said after they yelled, this is MAGA country during a fake assault, Smollett said he picked up his phone and told the person that he'd been talking to that he got jumped. Testified that he noticed he had a noose around his neck as he returned to his apartment. It's the most ridiculous story. You have a couple MAGA people out there in the middle of Chicago with a noose, walking around with a noose, waiting for a black guy to get a Subway sandwich, to get a footlong at Subway. Oh my goodness. We got a super chat just came in from TZ1052NY says Don Lemon was giving Smollett info that police were on to him. Is that a conspiracy charge if Smollett is guilty? That's from the Good Doctor, the NY Renal MD over on Locals. Shout out to the Good Doctor. Yeah, the form, the whole show is prepped for Ghislaine Maxwell. I've got like 35 slides on Ghislaine Maxwell, but this is happening right now, so we're going to have to switch to this. You know, look, I certainly, you know, I'm not overly eager to start charging people with crimes, but it certainly seems like that might be an ethical problem if you've got an entire news division and you're sort of investigating the investigators, you're communicating with law enforcement, attorney general, you've got contacts in the government, you've got all this stuff, you know, cooking under the scene, and you're funneling stuff back over to your buddy. You know, it's just unethical is really what it is. I'm not sure that it's a criminal conspiracy that would hold up in court, but it's completely unethical. It's not appropriate at all to do that stuff. You know, at least if you're going to hold yourself out to be sort of this fair and impartial person. We got the footlong Subway jokes coming in here. Uh-oh. That's trouble. All right, let's see what these guys are talking about over here. What's this?
The police and denied manufacturing the crime. And it's basically the case comes down to a he said, they said, because he says there was no manufactured crime, that he was honestly a victim, whereas the two Osendero brothers say that, in fact, they were put up to it and they were paid to commit the crime. His alleged motive was that he believed he had received a threatening letter, and his bosses, the Empire producers, had not taken the threats
Larry, let's
against
jump
his
in. Larry,
let's go.
Let me jump in. I think we've got some new information. The judge is in the courtroom. The jurors are there. Let's go to Dane Placco and see if we have the verdict. Dane?
Yeah, I'm waiting on a text to come down from Casey Cronus, our Fox colleague who's up in the courtroom right now. Judge James Lynn walked into the courtroom about 3 minutes ago. The jury has been brought into the courtroom. Judge Lynn opened up by telling everybody to control their emotions regardless of the verdict. And it sounds as though the verdict is being read at this moment. Again, 6 counts of felony disorderly conduct. It's likely they will go through the verdicts on each of those counts. Count 1, count 2, count 1 guilty. Jussie Smollett guilty of felony disorderly conduct on count 1. And that is just coming down now from the 7th floor of the criminal courthouse. We'll have to hear what his reaction is to that later. We know that he's been fairly stoic during the trial. He looked very stoic as he walked in here just moments ago. But again, count 1, guilty. Jussie Smollett, guilty. And I'm getting another text, count 2, guilty as well.
Count 2.
So at least 2 of the 6 counts right now, Jussie Smollett has been found guilty. of disorderly conduct, but it's a felony disorderly conduct, and as Larry was just explaining, that does carry a potentially longer prison term of possibly 3 years in prison, although most of the attorneys we talked to say that's not likely. Count 3, guilty again. So on half the counts, now Jussie Smollett has been found guilty. And we're loading up another count right now. Again, Casey Cronus, our new colleague from Fox 32, just joined the station last week, is up in the courtroom on one of the benches. It's an older courtroom, a large courtroom, but capacity very limited up there because of COVID. Only 57 people allowed, and we should be getting a fourth count verdict here in just a couple of moments.
Did she tweet anything? Where's Kamala?
Count 4, guilty. So again, 4 of the 6 counts so far against Jussie Smollett, he has been found guilty, and it's likely, if I may surmise, that there'll be guilty counts on 5 and 6 as well, because as Larry was saying just moments ago, these counts are all pretty much alike. They're essentially 6 counts for the same crime, and I can say, I don't have to say alleged crime now, I can say crime. Count 5, yes indeed, guilty. They're all the same crime, and that is for lying to a Chicago police officer. There were 3 separate occasions in which he was interviewed by police. Each of those occasions, he spoke to 2 officers, and so the way that Dan Webb, the special prosecutor, formulated his case was to charge 2 counts for each of those interactions with police.
Count 6, let's go.
And now we're loading up the 6th count here.
Let's go.
And let me tell you what it's going to be. Again, counts 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 guilty, and count 6 not guilty.
Whoa!
Well, that's a bit of a surprise. So he's guilty on 5 counts and not guilty on a 6th count.
Wow. Well,
however, it's a big win for the special prosecutor's office because they only needed 1 guilty count. They could have been not guilty on 5 counts and guilty on 1, and guilty on 5 is essentially the same thing. So again, Jussie Smollett just found guilty on 5 of the 6 felony disorderly conduct charges he faced in this trial.
Whoa. Wow, that's okay. So 5 out of the 6. So look, folks, every time somebody gets convicted of a crime, it's not a good thing. It's a bad thing that happens. Even no matter what you think about Jussie Smollett, his mom, his poor mom. Did you see his mom? She's going to be very upset about this. But this guy was something else, man. All the way up until the last moment, man. He kept it together. His story didn't change for a minute. There's written checks, there's photographs, there's videos of these guys buying the evidence. And he, till the very last minute, kept his story the same. Well, to his credit, if he really believes that. Now, here's a little bit of the problem. What happens next? So ordinarily in a situation, right, somebody is standing up in court. Do you remember what happened with Derek Chauvin? Derek Chauvin, he's sitting there. Eric Nelson was sitting right next to him, his defense lawyer. And the verdict gets read. Derek Chauvin is sitting there going, uh-oh, what does this mean? And guess what happened that day? He left in handcuffs. Remember that? Because it was a prison mandatory offense. So as soon as he was convicted, we didn't know how long he was going to be in prison yet because he hasn't been sentenced. He was put in handcuffs and taken into custody. And Judge Cahill sentenced him about a month later, and he got a big fat sentence, a lot longer than anyone thought. But as soon as you're convicted, and there's a prison sentence that follows, you typically go in handcuffs and you get escorted out of the courtroom. So I don't know if that's going to happen here or not, or if his attorneys, have worked something out or will work something out. But typically, you can get arrested right then if there's a prison mandatory offense. So let's check back in.
Sentencing date, and between now and the sentencing date, there will be a pre-sentence report, an extensive look into Jussie Smollett's past, factors which might have led him to commit these crimes, factors that will...
Okay, so they're going back to analysis right now. If we see anything popping out, if we see them running back out, we'll cut back over to this. But what he's explaining is exactly right. He's saying, okay, what happens now? Oftentimes, like I said, if somebody's going to be going to prison, if you are convicted of a crime and the only potential sentence is prison, you go to prison right then and there. You go that day, that moment. If it's a jail eligible offense, or if the judge has the option to give you probation, or there's something else where you don't have to go to prison, okay, well then the judge might let you go and come back and sentence you. And then if he decides that to use his or her discretion to actually sentence you, then at that time you'd go into prison. But here, I don't know. I don't practice in Chicago, and so we can't see anything that's happening right now. And so we're just going to continue to watch this, and we'll see if anything comes through. But we'll see if anything. I'm sorry. We'll see if anything like Jussie comes walking out of the court. We'll cut through to that. But the rest of the process is going to be more or less the same of a lot of what we've seen here. Jussie is going to come back for a sentencing at a later time, and the judge is going to ask him, or go through a series of an analysis to determine what the sentence should be. Typically, the way this works is you're going to have multiple different recommendations. Hang on a second. We just switched screens.
There from Fox 32 in Chicago. Let's just put up the tweet we have from Casey Cronus. The jury finding Jussie Smollett guilty on 5 of 6 counts. And you can see count 1 through 5 guilty, count 6, though, not guilty. That's very interesting, and I want to bring Doug Burns back into.
Okay, so
Doug,
yeah,
why would it just be the one?
So let me go back to what we were talking about. So now he's been convicted. Now we got to talk about a sentence. Well, okay, yeah, he did this stuff. Everybody knows it. He held his story to the very bitter end, but we know he did it, and he did it, and he held it to the very end. So now that he's been convicted, what's the appropriate penalty? Whatever you think about Jussie Smollett, do you think he should be, sentenced in prison for 40 years for this? I don't. But certainly some sort of a penalty, because he wasted a lot of people's time and resources, and we know that if this hoax would have gone the other way, there would be no benefit of the doubt for somebody on the other political side of the aisle. And so fair is fair. We want equal standards across the board. That's something we talk a lot about here. That's justice. I think this is him walking in. Yeah, walking into the building. So, yeah, that's when he was coming in. So no new footage there. But there's going to be multiple people opining about what the sentence should be. Jussie Smollett is now been convicted. The prosecution is going to come out here and they're going to ask for some sort of a penalty because of the fact that he has not been somebody who's been, let's say, remorseful. He's not been remorseful at all. In fact, he's been perpetrating this hoax up until the very bitter end. A prosecutor might take a look at that and say, yeah, you know what? Not only did you lie about it at the beginning, you lied about it when you got caught. You continued to lie about it. You got a benefit of the doubt by sort of not getting prosecuted for a certain period of time. You've now been prosecuted. You've now been convicted. And even during the trial itself, you took the stand and continued to lie. So a prosecutor might be very unhappy about that, right? I would be unhappy about that if I were a prosecutor. If I were a prosecutor and my goal was to change behaviors and help people learn something after they've committed a crime, help them become a better person. And at the very end, you have somebody who's working their way up all the way through the trial. They take the stand and they say, not even sorry. I don't feel bad about it. The whole thing is true exactly as I said. You go, that person now just is a liar, or they're like a sociopath. They're disconnected from reality. And so you say that person doesn't get it. They're not remorseful. There's no mitigation for them at all. And we're going to ask for the maximum penalty. If you were a prosecutor that thought that way, which, probably is how I would be, I would say. However, the defense is going to come back and say the opposite. Judge, it's all true. This is a violation of justice, blah, blah, blah. He's the victim of a crime, even though the jury found that he's factually not. He still is. He still suffered all of these consequences. He's lost his career. He's lost his, girlfriend or family or whatever. All of these consequences, I don't know what they are specifically, but they'll go through and they'll check the box. I think they're waiting for him to come out now. They'll go through, they'll check the box, and they'll say, this guy suffered a lot of financial consequences, relationship consequences, reputational consequences, and the list goes on and on and on. And so they're going to say, Judge, he's already been punished enough. And they'll say the penalty should just be something like probation. We should just, have him pay some fines and go on. And again, I don't know the specifics of this law, so I don't know if these are probation eligible offenses. They're felonies. We heard from this reporter that there may be some, prison sentences that are appropriate, but doesn't mean that it's mandatory prison. And it sounds like he doesn't have any prior felonies, so they're not going to escalate or sort of, he's not going to be a repeat category offender. So I don't know what they're waiting for. They're panning around right now. I don't know if they're waiting for the family to come out, if they're seeing if Jussie's coming out. but they are just sort of panning around all over the place, checking all the exit, making sure that nobody's scooting on out of there. So we've got prosecutors make their recommendation. Let's say in this case, they ask for the max. The defense comes out, of course, they're going to ask for the minimum. And so we talk about what are called sentencing ranges, and sentencing ranges are exactly that. You've got the beginning, and they just had a weird cut over there. You've got sort of the presumptuous range. Everybody starts here at the middle. You get charged with a penalty. It's a class 5 penalty. You are this category offender. It literally looks like a chart. And so you just go and you say, okay, Jussie Smollett has been convicted of this offense. He's this category offender, no prior offenses. You just open up a chart. He should be in this box. Within that box, then you've got several different categories. He's in this category of a sentence. And so you might have the middle sentence, which would be what's called the presumptive sentence. And then you can work your way up towards an aggravated sentence and down towards a mitigated sentence. I know this is complicated, but then he's going to also see somebody who's sort of independent apart from both sides, apart from the defense, apart from the prosecution. In Arizona, we call these pre-trial or pre-sentence reports that are drafted. And these are sort of interviews by people who work for the government, sort of an arm of the court. And they're going to sit down with Jussie and they're going to have a conversation with him. And they're going to say, listen, man, about your remorse, about, your mental faculties, thought process, all of these things. And they're going to make a recommendation as well to the judge. So the judge, back when sentencing happens, is going to be basically receiving 3 different recommendations. One from the prosecution, one from the defense, and one from a pre-trial services person or a pre-sentence report drafter, somebody who works, typically they might be with the probation department or something along those lines. They'll draft a report. Judge gets all 3 of these reports, reads them, and then sentences accordingly. And the judge is going to be looking at the same thing. What are the aggravating factors? What here did Jussie do that makes this worse than somebody else? Okay, everybody makes criminal mistakes. Everybody screws up from time to time. You, on the way to work, probably break the law multiple times, don't even know it. But hang on. Okay, so this guy's talking about this lunge. Let's listen here.
Not taking some of the cross-examination questions by defense lawyers seriously and indicating that with his facial expressions, all of this will go into a defense appeal of this case. It'll go to an appellate court in Illinois. And it may be more than a year before we eventually find out if the jury's verdict is upheld or overturned by an appellate court.
So in your estimation, it's maybe a long time before we really get this thing finished?
Well, he'll be sentenced, and it's possible if he just gets probation, the appeal won't be that significant. But right. In order to clear his name, say, for example, he's put on probation, which a lot of us expect. While he's serving that probation, his appeal will still go forward, and he could be seeking to clear his name with that appeal.
Sure. Yeah. Okay, so he's going to appeal to the end of the earth. Okay, so yeah, he's talking about that. He is going to be sentenced. He is going to come back. He was talking about this concept. Apparently, there was some altercation where the defense lawyer was saying that the judge sort of lunged at them, and there's all sorts of racial things being bandied about as usual. Let's take a look at Twitter and see if there is some reaction here. Oh, yeah. Let's take a look at some of these reactions. We forgot about some of these posts. Oh, speaking of the devil. Remember old Kamala Harris? Remember when she posted this? This was back in January of 2019. You can see 1:30 p.m. Jussie Smollett is one of the kindest, most gentle human beings I know. I'm praying for his quick recovery. This was an attempted modern-day lynching. No one should have to fear for their life because of their sexuality or the color of their skin. We must confront this hate. The Nigerians? Those guys? What are you talking about? Kamala? Oh, man, these people, I hope they eat their words, but of course they will not. An attempted modern-day lynching. And this was right. Look, folks, right? This was all done. This was entirely orchestrated. It was a media orchestrated hit job. This was in the year leading up to the election. Kamala Harris is jockeying around. She's a senator, jockeying for position, jumping into the primaries, all this stuff. They needed a MAGA story. Jussie gave him one, and they all latched onto it. Dogecoin Patriot also pointing this one out. The New York Times back in January, right when this happened. Jussie Smollett, one of the stars of the television show Empire, was attacked in Chicago by two assailants who yelled racial and homophobic slurs. Incident being investigated as a possible hate crime, according to the police. Joe Biden tweets it. What happened today to Jussie Smollett must never be tolerated in this country. We must stand up and demand that we no longer give this hate safe harbor. That homophobia and racism have no place on our streets or in our hearts. We are with you, Jussie. Oh my gosh. And that's the president of this country. So that's Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, sort of being forced to eat their words. There's a lot of hoaxes that go on around these times, but this was a pretty good one. This one got a lot of people. See if there's anything else good here. Kind of risky to just bounce around through some of these things here on Twitter. It could be dangerous. This is a little bit risky. All right, let's see what you have to say about some of this. We were going to go into all the Ghislaine Maxwell stuff, but I don't think there's any point in that. We'll save it over for tomorrow. Jay Super Chatted says he needs to be sentenced to wearing a MAGA hat for 3 years. That would be pretty bad penalty. Or go work for the Trump campaign. Go pick up Trump yard signs or something like that. That would be the worst. And Janet Hunt, thank you for that, Jay. Janet Hunt says Harris is big mad right now. She is mad. Yeah, you saw that. I'm sure that there's some interest. Yeah, okay, here we go. We got some photos now rolling in on Twitter. Remember this one? We support Jussie. I think this was from all those people at the Big Bang Theory. Remember this photo? And they were all just really, really somber and really sad. And yeah, and it was hilarious. If you didn't watch that Dave Chappelle show, when he's talking about the Jussie Smollett story, he's obviously started the Jussie thing. And Jussie, as he tells the story, when he's telling this, he's saying that after this happened, all the white people across America were very upset about this. Outraged. Look at this. You can see how upset they are. I think it's only white people in there. And so they were all very upset. This is Dave Chappelle telling the story, okay? It's not me. Dave Chappelle says that white people across America are very outraged by this. But he says, we'll bounce around for a little bit. It's probably, I guess what are we going to do here? Yeah, that was from Joe Biden. We've got, looks like this one. Cook County jury finds Jussie Smollett guilty of the hate crime. All right, so we've got, a lot of stuff going on over there. Let's see if we've got locals questions. I know that this was not the subject of the show today, but there may be some reaction over here. In fact, there is. Let's see. All right. Let's see. Rhonda Taylor says, Rob, your coverage of cases start to finish is A+. Your analysis of comparisons in court behavior and case info is like butter on popcorn. Example, let's say this was a turkey sandwich. Thanks for your devotion to this content channel, including on multiple platforms. Well, thank you, Rhonda. That's very nice of you to say that. See if we have some other questions here. Ghost Gunner says, are you going to be covering the trial of the other 3 officers in the murder of George Floyd? Yeah, let's, probably incidentally, let's see here, because they are in the same courtroom in the same court as, of course, Chauvin was. And I have that on my docket. Let's see if we can pull that up and just see what's going on with them real quickly. All right, here it is. We have Minnesota high-profile cases. We can see they've got a lot of stuff going on. So we've got, let's look at Tao Thao. So his court date is scheduled for trial March 7, 2022. Tao Thao, of course, was one of the officers there. Yeah, so we'll see. We'll see what else is sort of going on around that time. There's a lot of other stuff going on there. We've got NY Renal MD says, does Jussie Smollett get convicted? If he's convicted, does he get to stay out on bond until sentencing? How typical is that? So I sort of explained that earlier, Doctor. It's a little bit questionable. You know, if it's a prison mandatory sentence, you go into custody that day. Doesn't sound like his is. It sounds like his is probation eligible. We heard from that newscaster that it is in fact something that he can get probation for, and that's what everybody's expecting. You know, hopefully people aren't, you know, overly gratuitous with sentencing and punishing people. You know, I'm certainly not. I like accountability, but I don't like people to be, you know, punished to the point of abuse. Did you learn your lesson? All right, that's enough. Now, I'm not sure if he did learn his lesson at all. And so we've got Three Girly says, can he now be charged with perjury for his testimony statements? I see what you mean. So like for lying, no. So I see what you're saying. So like sort of like this infinite loop of criminal charges. You get up on the stand, you say something happened, you're found guilty of that. And because you're found guilty of that, we now believe that factually you lied. And so because you lied on the stand, now we're going to charge you with perjury. So you get a 2 for 1. No, Three Girlies, but it's an interesting idea. Now, like if he would have, let's say, if he would have revealed information about another crime, if he would have like said something, admitted something that would implicate him in another crime, they could say, oh, well, that's interesting. Didn't know you did that. Thanks for that. And so now we have this new piece of information. We're going to go create another indictment, you know, and stuff like that. So there is that risk, but no, I mean, you get up there, you swear under oath, it's my version of the events. We sort of give people that opportunity. That's funny. Thunder 7 is here, says, I don't want pathetic Jussie to get jail time, but I'm very glad that his fake and false memory was exposed. You were right, Rob. Hardly the crime of the century, but he did malign the MAGA crowd. We don't need more race baiting and division. Kamala was likely behind it, egging him on. They never thought he would ever get caught out in his lying testimony. Enjoy that one, Thunder 7 says, for Kamala Harris. And we've got, I know a lot of people are tuning in for Maxwell. We're not going to get to Maxwell today because, first of all, with Maxwell, there wasn't much to get. First of all, let me backtrack on that one. There was a ton to get to because there is so much happening in the Maxwell case, and you could talk about it for probably about 8 hours every day if you wanted to. But we're not going to do that. They were sick today. So the testimony today was very short. We heard from like 10 minutes of a witness. Somebody was sick. And so the Ghislaine Maxwell trial really didn't happen today. And we're going to see if the person who was ill today is better and back tomorrow, but we don't know. It's Friday. And you know, there's a lot of sicknesses going around right now, and I don't know any of them that are clear up in 24 hours, last I could tell. So I think it's actually a prosecutor. That's not been confirmed. And I know it's sort of, you know, bad form to speculate on this, but I think it was a prosecutor because they started testifying on the day. They called a witness, they were there, and then they had to basically stop. So I believe they were the ones who requested a meeting with the judge. They went into the judge's robing room and they had a conversation. They came back out and then they excused everybody for the day. So I think it's the prosecutors. Now, you know, the reason why that's important is because it's their case. They're bringing the case. You know, you really could. A cross-examination, I think, is a little bit more interchangeable than a direct examination. So, you know, if Ghislaine Maxwell, for example, if one of her defense attorneys was sick, they could probably just sub one of them out. Just say, all right, you really cannot do this cross-exam? Okay, well, stand by. I'll do it. Where's your list of notes? I'll just take your notes and I'll go do it. You could really do that with a direct exam, too. You could sort of sub a prosecutor in. But they were supposed to call their biggest victim, or their last victim, their final victim today, Annie Farmer. And so if you have a prosecutor and a victim who are paired up, then you can't, you know, you may not want to separate them. In other words, if that prosecutor is sick, if that's Allison Moe and she's really sick, okay, rest up, come back. It's your direct exam. We don't want to screw this up. Fine. Which is why I think it was a prosecutor. And I also joked on Twitter that defense attorneys don't take sick days. I'm just saying. I've been to court very sick. All right, let's take a look at some more questions over from watching the watchers.locals, and I'm seeing everybody over there on YouTube as well. Yeah, so a little bit of an audible today. We're changing. I know a lot of people are here. I know the thumbnail and I know the title says Ghislaine Maxwell, but they were sick today, and so we'll take a pause on it. I still have a ton of slides. We'll get through them tomorrow, but we'll be able to go through them a little bit more quickly because I was going to read a bunch of stuff today. There was a lot of motions and stuff, and we'll save it for tomorrow. I'm not sure if trial is going to happen tomorrow. I would expect the prosecutor to be sick for longer than 24 hours, but who knows? All right, Vientikis says, I remember watching the OJ trial. There wasn't as much countrywide tension that I noticed than compared to now. What does it say about our society when actually seeing justice in these small victories grants such huge relief? Is that a good thing or a bad thing? I'm not sure. Vientikis, I think it's probably not a real good thing, honestly. And I know that I'm part of the problem here. I'm sort of, we cover this stuff. Actually, I shouldn't say it's a problem. I don't think it's a problem. I think that some people can make it problematic. I think it's very important to have an informed and educated society, people who are interested in the happenings of what's going on around them. I think that when you sort of devolve into the level of apathy, where you have a society that's so disconnected from what's going on in the world, that's a problem. Just as much as it is the other way. So let's put this kind of on a spectrum. You have some people that can be way involved and overly invested in anything. They watch the Kyle Rittenhouse case and it becomes personal to them. I'm kind of guilty of that, right? I got those emotion tinges. I got some of those, the waterworks in the eyes there a little bit, right? I felt it because it's a very important issue to me. I believe in self-defense. I believe in the preservation of life. I don't like people unnecessarily prosecuted. I'm passionate as hell about that stuff. And so you're going to see people from time to time that will sort of gravitate to that side of the spectrum. They're very invested in it. Kyle Rittenhouse was one of those. Good portions of this entire country were highly invested in it. Now, you can go too far to that degree. I'm not Kyle Rittenhouse. If he gets convicted or he's acquitted one way or the other, right, probably not going to impact my life all that much at all, really, honestly. I mean, if you want to be honest about it. Now, you might say that it is an impact on the global zeitgeist or on the national zeitgeist. I understand that. And it's a moral victory and it's an energetic and a spiritual victory. And all of those things are important. But a big portion, I think a big reason of the reason why people connect with those cases is because it's deeper than just that case. It's about a fundamental issue. It's about freedom. It's about self-defense. It's about the right to keep and bear arms. It's something that is fundamental. And you can see that in multiple different ways. You can see that in terms of civil liberties, civil rights. You can see that in terms of race. You can see that in terms of sexuality. Like this Smollett case has been kind of about a lot of that, right? Race and homosexuality or homophobia or whatever that Kamala and Biden were talking about. These are very important issues. That's why people get so invested in it. So I think that is it's important that we keep our eyeballs on them without going too far on that spectrum where you are overly invested, where if something happens to Smollett, you think that America is melting down, because that's not reality. That's disconnected from reality. If you think something happens to Rittenhouse and that America is over, that's not reality, right? You're going to wake up the next day and it's going to be fine. And so, people can sort of conflate two things. And I know, it's really easy to get overly invested and overly connected. And I've got to dissect all this and I can solve this problem. And if only I know a little bit more. But we have to remember, a lot of this stuff is sort of, it's kind of Colosseum stuff. It's like the Roman Colosseum. Ghislaine Maxwell, we're all watching this happen. And they're just giving us this little spectacle for us to see. And we all might, rally around and say, oh, good, justice is being done. Smollett, he's a liar and, nobody likes him. Great. But we got to keep, from my perspective, the eye needs to stay on the bigger target here. That there are a lot of bad actors that from time to time will throw us some red meat and say, oh, go play around with Kyle Rittenhouse. Oh, here's a little bit of Ghislaine Maxwell. Here's a little bit of Jussie Smollett. Here's a little bit of transgender people in locker rooms or abortion. All this stuff that's just ultra red meat for people that they can just latch onto, and it makes them feel good. They can push that pellet from time to time and say, oh, this feels good. I've got this little rage pellet. Oh, yeah, this is hitting that button. Meanwhile, they're inflating the money away. They're forcing people to shove shots in their body. Not so much anymore, but there's a list of very serious atrocities that happen all around the place. And so, I think Vienticus, the other side of that spectrum are people that are just entirely apathetic and they're just, they're entirely unplugged. You have these people that are hyper plugged in. You have other people that are hyper unplugged. And there's probably a happy medium in there somewhere. Remembering what's important, family, local issues, spending time with the people you love, working on yourself, self-improvement, building your career, building your future, spending time with your family, not thinking that your life is over because of what happens to some defendant or what some stupid congressperson does 3,000 miles away from everybody. All right. I don't know what prompted that, but all right. Sorry about that. Yeah. News Now says, okay, it looks like reading the law, the max sentence he can get unless he gets consecutive sentences is 3 years. However, since he took the stand and lied and is not remorseful, I don't know if the judge is going to let him off on pure probation. At least I hope not. Yeah. I mean, I think that would be appropriate. If somebody gets up there and they show contrition, then the judge is a lot more inclined to say, okay, well, we're going to be more accommodating. But he didn't do that, did he? All right, that was from News Now. 3 years. What if he got the max? Could you imagine that? Black Cat Meow says, hey, Rob, just have to share Ben Shapiro's tweet. He said, tonight, Jussie Smollett can rest knowing that his attacker has been convicted. That's good. I'm just glad that he's finally facing some legal consequences. That's true. Yeah, there's not going to be anybody else out there who's throwing nooses around Chicagoans' necks at 2 a.m. in January looking for Subway sandwiches. That person has finally been brought to justice. Finally. All right, that was from Black Cat Meow. And a couple more here. Grouchy Old Cat Lady says, can they make him pay for his investigation and trial costs as part of his sentence? Sure they can, yeah. They could call that restitution, and they could just say, yeah, you got to pay that, buddy. Restitution, and they can incorporate that, the cost of the investigation. I think he's got a ton of money, so that's probably not going to be too consequential for him. But certainly, $1 million or so would be a big problem, or a big cost, and that doesn't make anybody happy. He also could be ordered to do certain things, but I think this is more about an ego. This is an ego trip. This is somebody who was at rallies with Kamala Harris. He wanted this to be his magnus opus, his big debut. The victim of the crime from MAGA, and the whole country rallies around him. You saw those morons out there on that TV show. Oh, justice for Jussie. And they don't have any idea, probably the reality of the situation still, which is just crazy. Thunder 7 is here, says, make him read the Constitution, make him attend a Trump rally, and make him follow Candace Owens on Twitter. It's going to be punishment enough for him. Might just bring him a little bit remorse and self-awareness. I'm not so sure about that, Thunder 7. Some people are just kind of sociopaths, Well, we'll leave it at that. We'll just leave it at that. Former LEO says, Smollett should be sentenced to the maximum for his attempt to start a race war with the extensive backing of the corrupt mainstream media and the retractions made. I don't know if I'd go that far, but certainly they were trying to stoke racial tensions, weren't they? News Now says, because today's a slower day for you, here's a 2-minute Binger meme video I put together. All right, this would be great. Let's do it. We've got watchingthewatchers.locals.com. This is News Now Wyoming. He's also over on YouTube. Looks like we got a Kyle Rittenhouse meme video. Let's see what we got. Oh, it's just memes. Oh, okay. So it's just, okay. So I thought I was going to hear something or something. No, it's just like, love it. Okay. So what do we have? Okay. Yes. I figure out how this works. News Now. Thank you. So we've got Judge Schrader saying there's going to be no eating in my new courtroom. And then you can see Krause over here down at the bottom right face palming himself. And if you recall, that was exactly when, in reality, that was when Gage Grosskreutz testified and he face palms. Over here, we have how to be a millionaire or whatever. Who wants to be a millionaire? Who is the biggest a-hole? Biden, Kamala, Binger, or Milley? That's a tough question. Here's another Binger one. Is it just me, or does that hair flip thing make you want to use it for target practice at the duck shooting booth at the fair. When Binger finds out that the hollow point doesn't explode. There's a lot of memes, man. I missed all these memes. Don't get brazen with me. This is my safety, sir. Thomas Binger. We have... Okay, one more hypothetical question. Is it normal if my wife has a boyfriend? And then there's Kyle Rittenhouse. Yeah, that's good. All right, so that's over at watchingthewatchers.locals.com. Go visit that if you want to check out the rest of those memes. Thank you for sharing that news now. There were a lot of memes there. My understanding is that Legal Bites and Natalie Wisco over from Rittenhouse's team, they had an interview on her channel. Shout out to Legal Bites. And they are, I think they reviewed a bunch of memes on there. And I haven't watched it yet, but I heard about it. Kincaid is here, says, the Pawn of Empire. It's a tale of mass hypnosis. Such a sad state of affairs. He's disconnected from reality due to his SES. Let's see. However, primary, secondary educators and media leaders disseminate information. This sort of behavior is only going to worsen if politicians keep enabling such narratives. Serious question. How can public figures say such things? I mean, they are in charge of our nation. Yeah, so that's, well, it's because what they're doing, what Kamala and what Biden are doing as the Democratic Party is they're cobbling together a bunch of these coalitions. You know, they need sort of, they don't have a unified message per se, so they cobble together, you know, these different groups by demographics, by sexuality, by class, by income, by, you know, country of origin. They divide everybody into these little categories and then they add them all up versus what I think people on the other side of the aisle that I would include myself in just want to be left alone. Just talk about freedom. That's it. That's kind of it. Just leave us alone. But all of these other, different groups have to sort of be catered to. And that's why they're always jockeying for position. So that's what they're doing. They're out there speaking out for one of those buckets. They get onto Twitter. They hear that a gay African-American man was the victim of a MAGA crime in Chicago. And they can't help themselves. Their thumbs just start tip-tapping away. They're pitter-pattered right on that phone. Oh my gosh. A gay black guy in Chicago? Ugh. By a MAGA person? Oh my. How many tweets can I post about this? Just one, Kamala, just one. What? What are you, nuts? Yeah, just one. You're going to look over eager. So she just posted one. But they're just salivating for those stories because it allows them to continue that division and to continue to cobble all of it together. Kincaid says, anyone who lived in a city on the ground knew better. Wasn't just Dave Chappelle. NY says, in 2007, Jussie had a DUI stop in which Smollett gave police a false name and signed his brother's name on it. It's a similar crime. Should that impact the sentence? Yeah, I think it should. I mean, it's a crime of moral turpitude. It's a crime of dishonesty. If you're a judge, yeah, you take a look at that and you say, no, not happy about it. Miss Danny says, want to thank you for a whole year of learning about American law. Now I know more of it than my own laws from Uruguay. Love your show, Robert. Love you back, Danny. Miss Danny, I'm glad you're here. Thanks for being a part of the show, and I'm glad that you're learning a lot. Sergeant Bob is here. Says, amazing verdict in Crook County, Illinois. This comes from history such as Operation Greylord. Judges and attorneys went to the big house. Ooh, what's this one? Never heard of Operation Greylord. FBI history here. March 15, 1984, federal courtroom in Chicago, jury found Harold Kahn guilty of all 4 counts of accepting bribes to be passed over onto Cook County. Judges as payments for fixing tickets. Uh-oh, we got a bagman deputy. Yeah, this stuff goes on all over the place, I'm sure. We had a judge in Arizona, up in northern Arizona, got in trouble for something kind of similar to this. This sounds like he was paying off judges for fixing tickets. So, hey, just fix all these tickets and, make these tickets go away. 92 people indicted, 17 judges, 48 lawyers, 8 policemen. Whoa. In Operation Greylord, 10 deputy sheriffs, 8 court officials, and 1 state legislator. Almost all of them pled guilty. Amazing. Love that. Root out that corruption. Thank you for sharing that, Sergeant Bob. Never heard about this one. FBI jumped in, rooted out some of the systemic corruption in the body politic. Yep. Get rid of the corruption. Absolutely amazing. So that's great. Thank you for sharing that, Sergeant Bob. Hope you and Miss Lucky are doing well and landing comfortably here in Arizona. We have no name on this one. Says he's going to stay out. Some heavy favors to Harris. Wait, something just doesn't make sense there. Not sure who asked that one. Monster One says, if Jussie doesn't get jail time, this entire thing is a waste of time. People who fake crime should get the maximum penalty a person would get if the crime was real. If a person commits a hate crime, they'd probably get at least 15 years. Jussie should get 15 by 5 for a total of 75 years. Sorry, not sorry. Monster One, man, that's tough. Lock him up, throw away the key. For Jussie, it's pretty harsh. But it's an opinion. And who am I to say it's invalid? Glad you're here, Monster One. Yeah, you know, it's a good point. It's like if they would have caught a couple of random white guys walking down the street, let's say with a flannel jacket on, and they happened to be wearing a red hat, happened to be, and they said, oh, you're a white guy, you've got a red hat on, you must be a Trumper. We're gonna arrest you for trying to noose a famous actor named Jussie Smollett. What would those guys get? What kind of penalty would they get? What would the charge and the sentence be for somebody who accosts somebody at 2 a.m, steals their Subway sandwich for them, and then ties a noose around their neck and says, this is MAGA country, get out of here? What would the penalty be for that? For those two fake people, if they existed, hypothetically speaking? It would, right? They'd get a penalty. Maybe they get 75 years, and Monster One would agree. Okay, a couple more. Jerry Nadler is here. Says, if Jussie doesn't get jail time, others may think it's worth the risk to fake a hate crime. By the way, you'll be happy to know I'm running for re-election in New York next year. Jerry Nadler's running for office again. He's got bigger problems to attend to, like his 35-pound diaper, which he has not changed as far as I can tell, because Congress stinks. Jumpin' Jeff says, how deep is the manure pile Alec Baldwin finds himself in now? Seems to me he's up to his eyeballs and fighting for a breath. Wondered about your preliminary take. Very good question. You know, I'm working on a mind map for him because that's sort of what I do now. I'm just like obsessed with these things. But it's very interesting. Let's see if I can pull this up. Yeah, so I just started laying out the framework of this puppy. Definitely not ready for prime time quite yet. But, whoops, don't need to see that code. But here you can see we've got sort of the stuff laid out here. I'm going to be taking a look at the timeline. We've got some of the post-incident media that he's doing. I've got a lot of problems with these, and I want to spend some time really dissecting this Stephanopoulos interview, and that's going to be a lot of fun. So this case is going to develop. I'm of the opinion that he should be charged. I think that he needs to be charged. I think that what he's doing right now is completely inappropriate to try to persuade the prosecutor and the media and everybody. He's putting serious public pressure on the people investigating this case, and I think that's offensive, and they should be offended by it. You know, my thought would be if they don't bring charges, I wonder why that is. Why not? Anybody else would be charged in this case. And Alec Baldwin, we can see there's a lot going on here. We're going to break down this interview. I think he's making multiple admissions. We're going to go through the New York statutes. So I am going to put that together. I've got several mind maps that I'm sort of, all of this is sort of coming in real time, and there's little updates here and there. And so I'm just going to piece it all together. I'm having fun. Yeah. Viantica says, Rob has a new toy, and that's exactly true. This thing is a lot of fun. Thanks for asking about that. So we'll get to Alec Baldwin soon enough, but I do think that he should be charged, and in fact, that's probably going to be the name of the video. Alec Baldwin needs to be charged because it's not appropriate. He has an unfair advantage. I don't like it. Kincaid says, the illness is Trump's fault. Ugh, it's true. Russia has used radio waves to make investigators ill. Dun, dun, duh. One half of that statement is true. That's from Kincaid. Jumpin' Jeff is saying that Bill Richardson is running interference for Baldwin. Yeah, I can sense it, right? A lot of people are doing this. ABC is running interference for this guy. They put this interview together with dramatic music, and he's all, so you're really upset? Do you feel guilty? No, not at all. Not even a minute. Oh, all right. Very curious there. So we're going to go through that. I'm probably going to get the whole stinking interview transcribed and review it. But the prosecutor there, the sheriff out of New Mexico, they've indicated they're not really interested in rushing this along. So we'll see how long that takes. Luna Frasia says, Emily Baker's making fun of my mind maps. She should be making fun of them. I don't blame her. They're goofy as hell. I'm a goofy guy. Outnumbered Mom says, thanks for your coverage of the trial. I really enjoy coming to your stream for the nuts and bolts of the case and then watching Joe for the feel of the courthouse. Well, that's a great way to put this, Outnumbered Mom. I think that's a great sort of division of labor between Joe and I, really. I mean, if you think about it that way. You know, I'm sort of a very anal mind mapper, somebody who likes to use spreadsheets and categorize data and catalog all of that. And it's hard to do that when you're sitting in a courtroom like Joe is, writing notes down, sort of unplugged from your technology. So I get to assemble all of that. I can be very meticulous and show all the relationships. He's out there talking about the emotions and the feels. And so, yeah, what Outnumbered Mom is doing is beautiful, right? Go to different people, get multiple different aspects. I've never, ever once claimed to be sort of the gospel, you know. I'm using a lot of their material, and we're all sort of assembling this to study it, stay plugged in, have a little bit of fun while we're doing it. And I'm glad that you're here for that ride, Outnumbered Mom. Spawn Dog says, I think it's bigger than that. People's rights are being stripped away bit by bit. The old journey of 1,000 miles starts with the first step. We as Americans need to speak up, like you, and vote who represents the people. I'll be the first to admit Trump wasn't my first choice, but quickly warmed up to him after seeing what he did. That's from Spawn Dog. Good to see you, Spawn Dog. I agree with that too. You know, I think that when I was categorizing, when I was talking about that spectrum, I'm not saying that, you know, there aren't situations that are not worth fighting for, right? There are situations absolutely that demand standing up and speaking out about it. What I am saying is that some people can get overly invested in certain issues that are really ultimately inconsequential for them, you know, almost to the point where it might impact the rest of their lives. So, you know, I've seen it happen. So just my thoughts on that. Monster One says, it's 4 years on each charge. They're all separate crimes. They could potentially run concurrent. We all know he's going to get nothing, though. Yeah, so you're going to hear these C words flying around, things running concurrently and things running consecutively. Those are really the two ways that things are sentenced. So here, Jussie convicted of 5 of the 6 charges. The question will be, are all of those 5 charges going to start at the same time? So it's like 5 people at the starting line. Are they all going to start at the same time? Or are they going to stagger start and then run consecutively? Like, is the first sentence going to have to start and finish before the second sentence starts and finish? Or do they all start at the same time? Monster One is saying, well, they could run consecutively and you could stack them all up together. Or you could run concurrently, or the judge could just give them probation. And that's the end of it. We have Monster One says he absolutely was trying to start a race war. You know, I don't know, but I don't know if that's in evidence, but yeah. 3 Girly says 3 years in prison, inmates fawning all over him. To other inmates, he would be a good looking piece of his narcissism and all the love he wants right there in prison. 3 Girlies. We have another one from somebody says, thank you, Rob. I understand your point. I'm just wondering how they can keep lying after the facts, disabuse them of their beliefs. Well, I'm not sure who you're talking about there because I don't remember you didn't put your name on there. So I'm not sure if I can connect that to a prior comment, but maybe. Vientikis is here, says, have you heard about the new sports drink? It's called Guilty Juice. Maybe he'll be on a commercial for that at one day. News Now says, said in jest because I know the jurisdictions, but let Smollett and Duggar spend their time as cellmates. That's right. Didn't Duggar get convicted today too? Duggar got convicted. I think Scott Peterson got resentenced. I think he's doing life in prison again. So yeah, a lot of guilty and resentencings today's. Vientikis is here. Did you see Nate the lawyer making fun of the whole Smollett story with his imitation Nigerian accent? It was hilarious. No, I didn't see that, but I'm sure it was hilarious. Nate's a funny guy, man. He's got a big personality, and his content's really, really good. And yeah, so no, I have not seen that, but I'm sure that's hysterical. The Jussie Smollett, it's a hilarious story. Nancy Pelosi's fun bag says, Rob, Would you play the bongos with my jugs? That's from Nancy Pelosi. The bongos with my jugs. Oh, that's the horrible image. Just the worst. Alec Baldwin says, Rob, would you let Alec Baldwin point an unloaded gun at you? He won't even touch the trigger. No, I would not. No, I would not. All right, we've got a couple more. Monster One says, that was my exact thought process. Imagine two innocent guys wearing red hats. They're trying something, trying to get something out of their car. Maybe they're moving some furniture. Cop rolls up, red hats and rope. They got a Christmas tree on the back. It's January. They're hauling a Christmas tree out to the dumpster. So they've got a rope. They've got red hats on, Santa hats, because it's Christmas. It's January. It's right after Christmas. Oh, it's a couple MAGA guys. Yeah, you're going right to jail. They would have gotten bail because they wouldn't have gotten bail because it's a hate crime. Innocent people would have been sitting in jail for 3 years now, likely looking at least a decade or more. Yeah, and Jussie's just like, yeah, well, it was a very precarious situation. I could have been killed. They were going to try to kill me. And he would, look, does anybody out there believe for 1 second if this would have happened, if they would have found two random guys, white or whatever, and it wouldn't have been so obvious that these are Nigerian dudes who actually have a paper trail because there was a check written. Like if he was marginally competent and he wasn't found out immediately and they just rounded up two random white guys or white, MAGA individuals and they got convicted for this hate crime, do you think that Jussie would have ever stood up one time ever and said, hey guys, they are innocent. They didn't actually do that. Or do you think he would have let them rot in prison for however long they would have rotted there? Jussie Smollett will do that. He will do that. Now, on this channel, we sort of know and have our opinions about Jussie. Okay, but a big portion of the other portion of this country probably still likes the guy. Or at least did before any of this took place. And they would never imagine him doing something like that. They would never imagine anybody lying, faking a story, making something up. Happens all the time. This just happens to be a public case. Happens all the time. Men constantly accused of violence and all sorts of nonsense. People accused of possessing drugs, nonsense. All sorts of stuff is made up. Jussie's just a really bad case. And I'm not saying that everybody who is a victim of a crime is making it up, but it's not insignificant. And this is just the latest example. So that's me railing about defense attorney issues. Thanks for indulging. Okay, we got a couple more questions and then we'll wrap it up for the day. We've got former LEO says, what would somebody say about Baldwin's tears? Don't know who that person is. Cora says, Rob, you were one of those classmates in grad school that I had a love-hate relationship with. Just kidding. Keep on keeping on, Virgo. Meticulous organization is your birthright. I've never heard it that way, but I like it. It is my birthright, and I'm going to seize it. It's mine for the taking, and nobody's going to come take it away from me. And if I want to connect 37 different lines, 100,000 different ways in a mind map, damn it, I'm going to do it. Thank you for the encouragement there, Cora. I appreciate that support. We're going to keep mind mapping it up. We're going to mind map to the moon, as far as I can tell. Sergeant Bob says, a great big hello to our international audience. They can only understand America through our discussions. P.S. We love Arizona, which is a sign that they have landed here, nuzzling in up there in the valley. I know where you are. It's a good spot. We'll have to connect soon enough, and we'll see what we can do to get an event scheduled for a little in-person meetup. Maybe next year, early next year. Couple more. We have PWSMKAZ says, thoughts on Kim Foxx accountability. She managed to get reelected for another term. Speaking of mind maps, I have something in my queue. I want to do no, that's not it. I'm trying to find a queue. There was an interesting article about all these prosecutors that are sort of a part of this like interwoven web. I can't remember what I did with this, but I saved it somewhere. But yeah, I want to talk about these prosecutors because you have a lot of them. You've got people like Letitia James, you've got Kim Gardner, you've got Kim Foxx, you've got You know, these, like the guy out of New York who, that's Letitia James. She's the attorney general over there. But you have all of these different prosecutors and DAs, district attorneys' offices that are releasing people on, no bail, essentially. The guy who just burnt down the Fox News Christmas tree released no bail. Like $500,000 in damage or something like that, right? Apparently just lit it on fire. No bail, arsonist now out on the streets. And it's kind of a weird situation when you have this, it almost feels like it's an organized campaign in the big cities all around the country. And so I think it's worth digging into a little bit. And I found an article that was doing a lot of the heavy lifting on the underlying tentacles. And I think that might be a fun mind map to develop and build out, because you can see how it all interplays with each other. You know, when we start thinking linearly, like investigating one person from beginning to end, it's hard to see the connections. Rather than if you're talking about multiple people and you sort of see everybody laid out, then you can say, oh, okay, all of these people are being funded by the same organizations. They've all got the same PACs and things where they're taking money. And I think that might be a good use of time, because it sort of conflates two worlds here. It conflates criminal law and it conflates politics. And I happen to like both those things a lot. So that's my sort of quick take on Kim Foxx. I think she's just a small cog in a big mill, and it's worth digging into, I think, certainly a little bit further. Kincaid is here, says Alec is the epitome of all that toxic masculinity. How the actual F did their brains not crash? That's from Kincaid. Yeah, Alec's got a little bit of a hot head, no doubt. News Now says, I do wonder if Baldwin had a suicide scene where he had to put a gun to his head, if he would check the gun himself, regardless of how many people told him it was safe. Great question. Very nice reframe there, News Now. Switching it around. Would Alec be so careless? I'm just a dumb actor. I have no idea how any of this stuff works. Oh, I'm a producer. We're not involved in anything. All we do is just send money to somebody and everybody else handles everything. Oh, no. I've only been doing this for 40 years. I mean, I don't know much about anything. I just stand there and read what they tell me to read. That's it. Okay. So if you trust everybody, then what happens? If you have to put your life on the line, if it's you on the other end of the barrel, not Halna Hutchins, then what happens? Oh, yeah. You check it, don't you? So sounds sort of negligent. It's a great reframe there. And we have former LEO says, oh, you can't say, oh, it's LeBron is what he was talking about. No, it's a family show, former LEO. You know that. Grouchy old cat lady says Rhode Island signed legislation Thursday compensates innocent people who spent time behind bars but were then released after new evidence proves they were not guilty. $50,000 per year per incarceration. What do you think about that? Would you trade your life in prison for 1 year for $50,000 per year? Would you? Go sit there for $50,000? Don't have to do anything. Sit there for 1 year, you come out, you got $50,000 check. Some people might do that. I would not do that. But apparently Rhode Island thinks that's okay. I guess it's better than nothing, I suppose. We have Grouchy, that was from Grouchy Old Cat Lady. Couple more before we wrap it up. We've got Hate Hoaxers says they should throw the book at Jussie. Make an example of him. Show that attempting to pull something like this isn't worth it. Deter others who fake hate crimes. If he gets off lightly, others who want to push a narrative, especially in an election year, might think it's worth it knowing the damage they cause can't be undone. They'll barely get punished anyways. Imagine how many others like Jussie believed and not found out at all. Disgusting. Yeah, it's a good point there, Hate Hoaxers. And it's an important equation. That's part of what we talk about in our criminal justice system. Why do we have a justice system? What's the point of it? It's an important question. And a lot of the time people don't ask that. Is it just to punish people? I mean, is that what you want to do? Just want to punish them? Well, I mean, if that's the goal, we can optimize the system for that, certainly. It doesn't really help people oftentimes. They get punished, they come out, they're worse. So if the goal, which is what I think it should be to have sort of a more productive society where you take a person who is at low utility for themselves because they're committing crimes, and you help them get to a position of high utility because they're no longer engaging in criminality, and now they're being useful because they've got new skills. They've been rehabilitated to deviate them from their criminality into a new life. If we have that system, well, then we should structure it differently, shouldn't we? Maybe we don't treat people like garbage at every turn. But we still have a huge portion of this country that wants punishment. That's what they want. It makes them feel good. Oh, yeah. Throw the book at him. Give him the max. He's the worst. I don't know where that comes from. I think that for some people, happiness is watching others fall. And I think that's kind of a bad way to live. I'm not saying that people shouldn't be punished, right? There are violent criminals. There are people who will drive through a parade on a Christmas morning. Monsters. And they should be punished and dealt with accordingly. But other people just want to see everybody just burn. They just want to see the world burn because it makes them feel good. And you find them on juries oftentimes, and it's a very sad thing. So, hate hoaxers, I understand what you're talking about. We also have to balance that with the disincentive. We have to create a system where, if we're asking what's the purpose of the system, what's the purpose of justice and convicting people and throwing them in prison, why are we doing that? One of the reasons might be because it creates a disincentive towards behavior that we don't want to take place in our society. We don't want people faking hate hoaxes, hate crimes. We don't want people murdering each other or burning down Christmas trees. So we criminalize that and punish people accordingly. If Jussie is not criminalized, are we actually disincentivizing anything at all? It's a good question. Not so sure. And I think, who was that who said, great question. Speech Unleashed wants to know if that $50,000 is going to be tax-free. No, that was Jumpin' Jeff. Jumpin' Jeff's thinking about it. Is it tax-free? Do I have to pay taxes on that? If I have to pay taxes, no. But if it's tax-free, maybe you'll have something on that one. Oh, that's funny. All right. So we've got a couple questions, and then we're going to wrap it up. I've got a dinner I got to get to. I'm going to go do a holiday thing tonight. Monster One says, I've been falsely accused of 2 crimes in my life. First time was a guy trying to get a lighter sentence. Luckily, I had an alibi. Second time, it was a girlfriend who cut herself. Both times, cases dismissed. Yeah, see what I'm saying? These stories are everywhere. It really is a thing. Thank you for sharing that, Monster One. I'm glad you escaped any criminal liability. Former LEO says it's a female dog. Well, that is true, former LEO. The safety of society has to be preserved is also from former LEO. Monster One says 50 grand to sit in a prison for a year? Sign me up. I just spent 3 years there and I still owe him money. A year of TV and poker from Monster One. I guess that's true. I mean, that sounds like if you've already been there, it's like, yeah, I already did that, brother. No problem. An extra 50 grand? No problem. That's funny. Well, I'm glad you're out of there, Monster One. Welcome back. 3 Girlie says, $50,000 a year to sit in prison wrongfully convicted. Hell no. Absolutely not. $50,000 a year isn't even a yearly wage for a lot of people. Some people, it's 2 years of a wage. But what happens if that person is making $1 million a year with the danger, disease, isolation, etc.? Absolutely not enough money for anyone wrongfully accused to sit in prison. On top of that, their life is ruined. No education, no job skills. Absolutely not. That's my answer too. And that's from 3 Girlies. And we had a couple super chats come in before we wrap it up out of here for the day. Blase Uriarty says, can we stop making fun of Krause for his weight? It's distasteful. Yeah, I try not to do too much of it. Did I do any of that on the show today? Did I say anything about that? There's a lot of names about him, being bandied around out there. Look, I get it. I feel bad for him, honestly. Like I said this on the show. I feel bad for the guy. You can tell he just doesn't like his existence. And I feel bad for people like that. Maybe he does, but I doubt it. All right. And I don't want to talk badly about him. I feel sorry for him. I hope he finds whatever he's looking for. He's very angry with the world. He wanted to take it out on Rittenhouse. Didn't work out for him. Hopefully he figures it out. All right. Beth Coddington is here with a generous super chat. Beth is always generous. Says, here's to my favorite superhero, Robert Captain Gratitude Grueler. I do say gratitude. I have a gratitude app on my phone. I try to do it every morning. I usually get about 5 out of the 7 days. Beth says, or to our PC neighbors to the far left, gratitude. Gratitois. Oh, gratitois, maybe. Is that how you say it? Love you so much. I love you back, Beth. Gratitois. Is that how you say it? I'm not French. I've been to France. Didn't have a good time over there. Not the friendliest of people. Gratitois. Juicy, Jussie, Robert, Gruyere, the whole gratitois, the whole thing. It's a mess. Good to see you, Beth. Thank you for that. And I don't mean to offend any of our French viewers. I don't think there are any of them, though. Luna Freja says, Emily Baker is making fun of your mind maps. Yeah, we saw that one earlier. I don't blame her. I'd make fun of him too. Dr. Frizoid says, just a donation to the mind map. Thank you, Dr. Frizoid. I appreciate that. $5 to the mind map. It'll go to good use. And Janet Hunt says, careful. If you do that mind map with all the prosecutors out there, you're going to uncover Soros and you're going to get banned. I think that's probably true, which is why I want to make it. Not the banned part, but I do want to see what's going on there. NY Renal says, Rob, it's not for the love of Jussie being punished. He isn't some kid stealing a car or a teenage girl shoplifting. He tried to enrich himself and also politically blame a group of people. The truth is, in many of his current circles, he's a hero. So, no, I don't feel sorry for him. That's from NY. I certainly don't feel sorry for him anyway. I mean, I don't feel sorry for him. You know, he made his bed. He can sleep in it. Jay Heath says, congratulations to Jussie Smollett. He's the first American ever to scam a Nigerian. That's true. The old switcheroo on that one. You know, normally you get those emails from that Nigerian prince. What's his face? He's always in a pickle. Don't you hate that? $50,000. His uncle just borrowed this, but if you give him the 50, he's going to give you $3 million. He sounds like a really nice guy. Unfortunately, I just don't have an extra $50,000 lying around. Now, Jussie, he was able to find, you know, some very, very easily, you know, pretty gullible Nigerians out there because they fell for the hoax. Oh, no, it's going to be fine. Just put the noose around my neck. Just kick me in the side. Call me, you know, something pejorative. Say that this is MAGA country and run away. This whole thing's going to be fine. Kamala Harris is going to just come out there. She's going to tweet. Joe Biden's going to tweet. And, you know, it's going to be very simple. Turns into like one of the biggest trials of the year. Whoops. Jussie got him scammed, didn't he? He scammed those Nigerians. He's not a dummy, folks. He's no dummy. News Now says 50,000 better than nothing. Yeah, that's right. Which is what a person who was wrongfully convicted received here in Wyoming a few years back. They found a major prosecutorial misconduct, but the courts ruled 14 years in prisons wasn't worthy of reimbursement. Ugh. It drives me nuts. That drives me nuts. What would it... Okay, Judge. How about you give us 14 years of your life? Okay, Mr. Prosecutor, how about you give us 14 years of your life? They wouldn't do it. There are very little consequences for all of these acts. It's the government. What are you going to do about it? It's the biggest monopoly in the planet. They have all the power, all the control. Who are you going to complain to? Sergeant Bob says, go to Normandy in France. They love us. They have not forgotten. I didn't go to Normandy. Maybe I'll have to go back there. It's a beautiful country, don't get me wrong, but it was not welcoming. Jussie Smollett says, Rob, don't forget to mention the Zoom meetup on Saturday the 11th for that one Florida man. Thanks for reminding me. Yeah, we're a little bit off keister over here because we are not doing our regular show, and so my slides are all off. And yeah, Chairman of the board says, is it inevitable that one day all the mind maps will connect like the 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon? Yeah, it could be. It could be. There could be one prime architect of the entire universe who's governing it all. And all the mind maps just connect. We identify it and solve it all. It's probably going to happen here on this channel, so you better subscribe if you haven't already. We have a couple others here. Lil Wayne is in the house, says, hey, Rob, I'm a web developer and app developer. Your show has motivated me to work on designing an app related to our society and holding the government accountable. I might come to you with a proposal soon. Well, sounds good, Lil Wayne. That sounds great. I love the language that you're speaking. Government accountability, you're speaking my language. So that sounds great. I'd love to see if I could help you or what you're working on. Send me an email and we'll be in touch. We've got Beth Coddington with another one, says, LOL, should have said progressives. You know, Latinx, Gratitude X. Oh, never mind. Oh, I got it. I got it, Beth. You have to forgive me. I'm a little bit slow on the uptake. Thanks for clarifying it. Gratitude X. Yes. Because we got to be very careful with our pronouns on this show. Pronouns and all the different alphabet letters. It's complicated stuff. All right, my friends, and it looks like that was it for us for the day. And so as I've been reminded, I have to remind you that we have our monthly meetup taking place this Saturday, the 11th. And it's going to be an ugly sweater edition, and it's going to be a lot of fun. So if you're a member over at watchingthewatchers.locals.com, there's going to be a registration link. Join us. We can we go for about 90 minutes or sometimes 2 hours. Come for 5 minutes, hang out for 10 minutes, hang out for the full time if you want. It's just a Zoom meeting, so you can keep your camera on, keep it off if you want, just poke around in the background, hang out. We do not record it so that we encourage people to come and participate. We'd love to see your face if you're around, so we can just kind of put a name to a face. You can use a real name if you want. Don't have to do that either. Not a big deal. It's super casual. I don't prepare anything. It's just sort of Q&A. So swing on by. We're wearing ugly sweaters. It's a really fun thing that we do. So we kind of are building a community and getting to connect with all the people that you hear about on the show. And so I want to invite you to come and check that out. This Saturday, it's going to be at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. So do the math on the time zone as applicable to you. But I do hope to see you. Tomorrow, we are going to be back and talk about Ghislaine Maxwell. Hopefully the trial's back in session. If not, can't imagine we're going to get another Jussie Smollett verdict. So we will cover the content we were going to cover today. And it's going to be a lot of... there was actually a lot of activity today. And so we'll piece it together. We'll talk about the sickness. Hopefully everybody on the trial team is feeling better. They get some sleep. They come back and they're ready to close this week out because we've only got 1 day left. And if it's our final witness, the government may be resting and we may start up with the defense next week. And we might have a charging conference before Christmas in this trial, which means we might even have a verdict before Christmas, which is just nuts because we were thinking this was all going to go into next year. So we're going to continue to build out the mind map. We're going to continue to cover Ghislaine Maxwell. We're going to cover this and all of the other stuff as usual. We want you to be here so that you can be a part of it. And that, my friends, is it for us for the day. Same time, same place tomorrow. I'll see you right back here. Have a tremendous evening, my friends. Sleep very well. Until next time. Bye-bye.